And we're back. This is video 3 of 3, Living on Purpose, Genesis chapter 49. It's kind of interesting. I dropped my mouse and it made for a moment of humor, but that's okay. There's a third thing that we find as we consider what it means to be chosen by God, and that is this: having an awareness of our God who helps us and blesses us. When Jacob was declaring the testimony of Joseph, he shared that with Joseph, that God helps people who seek him. Now, the key is seeking him. There's something in my Bible I had written years ago. It says this: unconfessed sin will block God's blessing. Unconfessed sin will block God's blessing. One of the reasons that God blessed Joseph is because Joseph chose to be in fellowship with God, and when he was in fellowship with God, God had the ability to do things in his life that God could do only when the Spirit of God is in charge. The same thing in your life and mine. The only way the Spirit of God can really do a work for the glory of God is when he's in charge, when we surrender our lives to him. Here's the principle. Living on purpose means being aware we are chosen by God to be a testimony by his authority and presence in our lives. But there's a third thing that we find as we consider what it means to live on purpose. That is this, number 3. The importance of utilizing our God-given abilities and talents. The importance of utilizing our God-given abilities and talents. Living up to, there are 3 things here. Here's the first thing. Living up to the gifts and the intuitive determinations we have been given. The joy of life comes when you use the gifts and talents God has given you to accomplish what he wants you to accomplish. Ask a cook what makes them happy. And the answer is the delight they get when people enjoy what they have cooked. Ask a builder what makes their day when what they have built is completed and turned out to satisfy the customer. Joseph was a great example of a man who used the gifts and talents God gave him for the glory of God. There's a second thing that we understand as we understand the fact that our God-given abilities and talents are for God to use through us. And that's B. Living to achieve what God has put within us to accomplish. Living to achieve what God has put within us to accomplish. There is no greater joy than achieving what you've set out to do. There's also no worse moment in life when you feel that you failed to do what you wanted to get done. Reuben was the son who failed in his calling and failed to do what he should have done. But even though Jacob confronted him with his failures, Reuben was given the opportunity to change his life and to make his calling worthy again. There's a third thing we understand about this matter of utilizing our God-given abilities and talents, and that is this C, living to fulfill the drive and purpose God has placed within us. This is what will give us the renewed sense of accomplishment that God would want us to experience. Let's face it. I think I mentioned last week, it was Nehemiah who said, "The joy of the Lord is our strength." When we are in right relationship with God, that is when we have a joy in the Lord, and that is when we're able to accomplish that which God wants us to accomplish for his glory. You know, our Christian life is a life of relationship. It's no different than being a relationship with your wife, or your husband, or with the family, or a relationship with people that you work with. If you are not on speaking terms, it affects every part of your life. It affects the way you think, it affects the way you speak, it affects the way you react and respond to life, until whatever it is that was a difficulty gets resolved. The joy of life comes when we resolve stuff. That's why the psalmist tells us, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. When we trust God and give him the issues of our lives, something wonderful happens. We find peace. We find meaning. There's balance again. We have the ability then to communicate with those who we love. And when we use words like, I'm sorry, forgive me, then we find the joy of the Lord. That's when we find peace. Well, here's the principle. Living on purpose means using our God-given abilities and talents for the glory of God and the joy it brings us when we are true to ourselves. Well, as we look at the end of chapter 49, Jacob shares all these things with all his sons. And I didn't read the rest of the chapter, but he shares something positive about each one of his sons. He didn't do that just because there was nothing else for him to say. He shared this to let them know that they each had unique abilities and talents and motivations that God gave them. And it was an opportunity for Jacob to share with them, now that you are once again aware of that, maybe they weren't aware of it, it is time now to live up to your calling, to do and to be what God's called you to do and to be. As we close, may I just challenge you who are listening today. I don't know where you are right now in your relationship with God, in your relationship with your mate, or with people, but if there's some things that are out of order, may I encourage you today to get things right, to do that which needs to be done. After all, God has called you. God has chosen you. He has given you everything that you need. And as you commit your life to him, as you make things right with other people, something wonderful happens. The Spirit of God then has control of your life, and you have the ability to see things the way God wants you to see things, and to respond in ways that are pleasing to God, so that your world around about you now is an opportunity for you to be a part of the solution of life. I'm sorry to say, sometimes we are part of the problem. And if that's the case, this is a good day to make things right with God. Take a personal inventory of your life and to allow God to refresh and renew you. Well, may the Lord help you as you move in his direction to live on purpose for him. Until then, and until next time, may God richly bless you. Bye for now.